Net, you gonna give us another day? Guys know me. I always make sure I have to see it. I have to see it. If I don't see it, then it's not happening. It's just not happening unless I see it. And you guys know me. I wait even longer than I have to because here I am. Let me just make sure. Yeah, we're looking pretty. We're looking pretty. We're looking pretty. I love it. I love it. All right. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. Good evening. Good morning. I did my time zone third again. I did that thing where I did my time zone third. I like doing it that way. But if you're in my time zone, the Pacific time zone, which is where I'm at, and that's where my guest today, she's in that time zone too, then, good morning. This is a morning show. What do you guys think of my new screen? Still a work in progress, still tweaking the lighting, but this is the second day of the new screen. I feel good with it. I really do. Yeah. So how's it going? Let me thank everyone who makes this show possible. First of all, ZT.com, our friends over at ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. You can get their tea wholesale now because of the pandemic. Show them some love. ZT.com. I recommend the new Chinese white peach tea. It's amazing. I forget the full name of it, but try it. It's great. I've been obsessed with it. Triageoil.com. They make pain oil that you rub on your body, and it has done wonders for my neck. If you're looking for very, very effective pain oil, especially in this sunburn season, right? Triageoil.com. And finally, if you want to take CBD orally, I got you covered. Rare Naturals with an S, CBD.com. That's Rare Naturals with an S, CBD.com. They make all natural CBD oil that you can put in your drink. You can put a drop under your tongue. It's great to relax after a workout. It's great if you just want to chill out and zone out. It's great if you feel a headache coming on. It helps that. So it's all natural CBD oil, natural flavor, so you can put it in a drink, and it's very refreshing. Here's the best part. You go to their website, you use the promo code Lucy at checkout, and you get 30% off. That's right. You use the promo code Lucy at checkout, 30% off. So if you're a CBD oil user already, this is a great way to stock up. You're going to stock up in these times, and you can get 30% off your order. That's, again, the promo code Lucy at checkout. That website is Rare Naturals with an S, CBD.com. All right, without further ado, I'm so excited to talk to my guest today. I met her at the People's Convention on Sunday. She did an amazing job. She is a council person in Silver Lake, and she ran against Adam Schiff. We're going to be talking a lot about that. She is the first drag queen in the history of the United States to be elected to office. How cool is that? So please welcome to the program, Maebe, a girl. Hey, Maebe, how are you?
Hey, Ron. I am great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Great to see you. Thanks for being here. And fantastic job on Sunday. How much fun did you have? I had so much freaking fun.
I had so much fun. It was a blast. I didn't really know what to expect, being that it was the first People's Convention, but I had such a blast. It was so inspiring. It was so hopeful, and I was so grateful to be a part of it. I loved your speech.
Thank you. I loved yours as well. And how cool was it when Cornel West just logged into that Zoom like beforehand and was just saying hello to everybody?
I thought that was so incredible. I was gagged when I wasn't really paying attention for a second, and then he was like, I heard him. He was like, Maebe, Maebe. I was like, what about me? I was like, it's Maebe. I was so gagged.
It was so cool. I mean, it was just like everyone was just in there. I sent the only. Did you DM anyone? Can I ask you that? Did you kind of just direct message somebody just saying, I got to say something to this person?
Like anybody that was a part of the convention. I didn't message anybody a part of the convention, really. I was kind of involved in the tweeting and everything, but I was mostly texting my mom. I was like, look, I'm in the same chat as Marianne Williams said.
Yeah, I was posting screenshots. The only person that I did DM, in the Zoom was Medea Benjamin. because I just had to say something to her about her Iran book, because I just thought she did such an amazing job. And, you know, I just said, hey, your latest on Iran was incredible, and thank you so much for all you do. And she said back at you. I don't know if she was just being polite or if she actually knew who I was, but I think I was probably blushing.
Yeah, it's always hard
the
to tell, you know.
yeah. But so let's get to some news first, and then I'm really stoked to talk to you and your experiences running for office. But first, you guys know this. They had to look at a bunch of bills in California yesterday. We got a little bit of good news, or good-ish news, better news, I guess is the right way to put it. But first, some not so great news. And by not so great, I mean terrible. California bill to strip police badges from bad officers fails to pass state legislator. Oh, by the way, on the same day, there was yet another shooting. There was another shooting. They still didn't pass this. We're one of 5 states that doesn't have a basic ordinance that when someone has, well, here, let's read some of the article to see the way they put it. A bill that would allow bad officers, quote unquote, to be permanently stripped of their badges failed to pass the California legislature on Monday. The measure would have created a way to decertify officers found to have committed serious misconduct. The bill got a late boost from celebrity Kim Kardashian West, but still didn't pass. So 5 states currently have no way of decertifying poor police officers. California, we're one of them, Hawaii, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. So basically what this means, in every state except for 5, and California is one of them, if a police officer gets caught using excessive force or sexual assault or anything like that, they can be decertified right away. Not here in California, the so-called progressive utopia.
Yeah, so here in California, they can just move right to another district, move to a different part of the state. And I just think it is so messed up, especially because if you look at that list of states that you just named, a lot of those states are quote unquote progressive. Right. So I'm pretty gagged that it didn't pass here. And it's also just, it's frustrating and it's infuriating because, you know, over the past several months, so many of these same politicians and officials are taking knees and marching. And when they have the actual opportunity to do something, they let everybody down. It's messed up. Can I say fucked up on this show?
Yes, you can.
Well, that's
you most certainly can. I mean, because what other words come to mind these days?
you know, I was just shocked. And also, you know, let me preface this with this, that, you know, I don't hate the Kardashians. I know that a lot of people do, but when one of the Kardashians is more progressive and promoting something more than our elected officials, there's an issue with that. You know, there's an issue with that. So for all you have to say about the Kardashians, at least they're trying to promote, or some of them are trying to promote some of these decent issues. So I was disappointed, and I think a lot of people are disappointed. I just don't know what would influence these politicians to vote against these unless they're being supported by police unions, which, you know, is a strong possibility for many of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, it's so funny when, well, I don't know if funny is the right word, when we look to pop culture and we're like, oh, this person is behaving more responsibly. I mean, even like in the coronavirus, Insane Clown Posse canceled all of their stuff right away. And it's like, wow, Insane Clown Posse is being more responsible than most of our elected officials are. Insane Clown Posse.
It is a gag. That's what we call a gag. You know, it's not funny, like haha funny, but it's funny. It's interesting. It's a gag.
It's one of those, if you don't laugh, you'll go insane funny.
Exactly. Like the rest of the posse.
So let's look at what else. I wanted to focus on this for a good portion of today's show. Because yesterday was the last day of assembly, the last day of the session. So here's what they did do. And there's some reason, there are a few things here that are good, a few things not so good. So let's kind of take a look at a summary here. Here's what California lawmakers did on their last day of session. So the end of California's legislative session was beleaguered by COVID-19, wildfires, of course, a tanked economy, and a looming eviction crisis. Sleep tight, America. All right, so here's some of what happened. So here, this is, at least some temporary good news as far as people aren't going to be kicked out of their homes. Eviction relief. Lawmakers passed and Newsom signed AB 3088, one of the most closely watched bills extending a halt to evictions for unpaid rent as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Newsom said the bill was a bridge. We need a real federal commitment, blah, blah, blah. The states. So here's what's going on. It pauses evictions through January 31st as a result of unpaid rent in the first 6 months of the pandemic. To be eligible for the protections, renters would have to fill out documents certifying that they were impacted by COVID-19. Tenants also would have to pay at least 25% of their rent starting in September. Now, here's some not so great parts of this. The bill, however, does not forgive any missed rent payments. Landlords could recoup any unpaid sum in small claims court starting in March. Now, here's the other part. Evictions not related to unpaid rent, for example, as a result of nuisance complaints or the owner remodeling, for example, could restart when the current eviction moratorium ends September 2nd. The legislation would also offer some foreclosure protections for small landlords. So here's a question. What's stopping? Couldn't some landlord just say, I need to remodel, you need to get out of here? Is that what that means? Could they just do that and then still kick people out of their homes?
I don't think in this particular climate, I think if a landlord was to try to pull that move, I think that there would be bite back. And I think that landlords, and I don't want to give all landlords a bad name, but I do think that many landlords, especially big landlords, rely on the fact that not everybody is knowledgeable about their rights, not knowledgeable about state laws, local and federal laws. So I think they will try to use that to their advantage. Here in LA, we, have a supposed moratorium on evictions, but at the same time, people are still being evicted. I'm still seeing things all over online saying, these people are being evicted. And, I think that even though it's not necessarily allowed under law, like I said, I think that a lot of big business landlords are taking advantage of tenants that might not know any better, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm glad this passed. I'm glad there's something to keep people in their homes. Are you glad it passed?
Well, I mean, yes, but of course. But, I'm also at the same time disappointed that, my own city that I live in, Los Angeles, one of the most progressive cities in the USA, didn't vote for something like that. You'll hear all of the city council members say that, that there is an eviction moratorium, but there's not a true blanket eviction moratorium right now. And that's really messed up. Yeah.
So let's see what else. So here's the part where they talk about police reform. Police reform, despite a strong push. Now, they mentioned the SB 731, which is the thing we just covered. That did not pass, which it's ridiculous that it didn't. Time also ran out for SB 776, which would have made more complaints of police violence subject to open records laws and require those complaints, which are currently retained for 5 years, to be retained indefinitely. Why keep records of this? Why keep another bill, AB 66, which would have banned rubber bullets, tear gas, and other less lethal crowd control tactics on protesters, also failed when time ran out. So that whole not committing war crimes against our own people, that failed. Sorry.
It blows my mind. It blows my mind.
You got to be kidding. On the same day, there was yet another shooting, too. Again, to just reiterate, same day that there was another shooting, they're like, oh, sorry, we can't. You know what's crazy? What if, I've talked about this before. Let me get your take on this, baby. What if cities started treating police officers like teachers and teachers like police officers? What if they just flipped it? What if they were just like, we were going to cut funding to education, but we don't want to make the teachers mad. The teachers might get mad if we do that. So sorry, we're not going to be able to touch education. We can't do that. We're just going to leave education as it is because we want these teachers to be happy. Oh, you got an F? You must have deserved it. What did you do to deserve it? And then on the other side for police officers, like, sorry, you're gonna have to buy your own gear.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. You're gonna have to buy your own supplies. Just like so many freaking teachers, not just in this state, but in the nation. Yeah, I would love to see cops have to buy their own. You got to buy your own handcuffs, your own handgun, your uniform. It's just so bogus. It's so bogus, the priorities that, you often think about this on a federal level, but as we're seeing right now, this is also on state levels in states that are supposedly progressive, supposedly very blue. And it's just so messed up. I mean, what is it going to take for our elected officials to vote in the way that people want them to vote?
Yeah, I mean, well, there have been all those academic studies. Like, I mean, some of them were by, I think Princeton did a big one, and I think Harvard as well, where they kind of did an analysis on public opinion, and then they did an analysis of what policies actually go through. And they found that not only does the government ignore public opinion, they actively work against it. Like, they work against public opinion. They actually do the opposite of what people want. And we see that now, especially at the federal level. We're seeing it right now.
Well, I think it makes sense that it's that we see it the most at the federal level because, when you look at the grander scheme of things, our greater society, not just right now, but in the course of our recent and further past history, they don't want the people to realize that they have the power. They don't want the people to be making the decisions. It is my firm belief that our government is trying everything in their power to enable the status quo to continue. And they will do everything in their power to make sure that the status quo continues to happen. And, I think people are really wising up right now. People are wising up, not only just that their individual voice matters, but they're wising up because there's so much more information available right now because of the internet and social media. And, I think that people have drastically caught up in the past couple of years. And I think that a lot of big people in government are terrified about that. A lot of big people in government are realizing that people want more. People want Medicare for all. People want a Green New Deal. People want housing justice. And, it's just a gag that we've been fighting for these things for decades. And I just don't understand how the people that make up this nation can demand these things. And then their representatives who are supposedly elected to represent them cannot fulfill that obligation of representation. They represent their interest and the interests of their donors. And that's not democratic. It's messed up.
Do you think they're really worried, though? Because, I mean, I just wonder, they're not changing at all. Like, they're just not changing. I mean, I feel like we are seeing 2016 repeat itself in real time.
Well, 100% we are. But they're also, I do think that they're worried, but they're making it seem like they're not worried. They're just trying to ignore the millions of people that are demanding these things. And, that can only go on for so long. People are really starting to wise up. And I think it kind of feeds back into why we have this, People's Convention and the development of this new People's Party, because the demands and the needs of the people are not being met. And when that doesn't happen, what do? There's a number of options. You protest, you go on strike, or you form your own party. And
we got to do all three.
We got to do all three.
We can't pick one.
Exactly.
We got to do all three. And I don't think we quite have the numbers we need yet. And I'm just being objective. What do you think? Do you agree?
I think, objectively speaking, from, looking at the attendance of the People's Party convention and the interest, I do agree with you. But I do think that there's a hesitation. People are skeptical of forming a new party because when they think of third parties, they think of the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, and they see how, unfortunately, ineffective those parties have been in the grander scheme of things. And so I think that people are afraid that their vote is going to be lost if they vote for a third party. But again, that fear feeds into why this duopoly, why the binary system of Republican or Democrat carries on. But when you look at it, for as many differences that there are in political values and ideals, the Republicans and the Democrats are a lot closer at face value than I think real Americans are. There are varying opinions. There are conservative people, there's liberal people, but I do believe that there are so many more very progressive people who are to the left of what the DNC is presenting right now. But the DNC is presenting this as, as being the progressive platform when it's not whatsoever. It's the status quo platform.
No, it'd be considered a right-wing platform pretty much in any other democratic experiment in the world.
That is the T, Ron.
Yeah. I mean, and I've said something similar where, I mean, I've said this before, where if I honestly believed that what we see in government, the Overton window, the small, narrow, permissible range of conversation, if I honestly thought that reflected all the people here, I would have left a long time ago. I really would have. If I honestly believed I live in a country where everybody is either right wing or a neo-fascist, I would have left. I don't believe that for what. Well, I know that's not the case. I don't believe that for 1 second. That doesn't reflect the people who live here, not even close. But when you have two parties who have the same owners, who have formed this organized duopoly, and it really is just like a business for them. Hey, Republicans, be as gruesome as you want because that'll allow us to be ineffective. And hey, Democrats, be as ineffective as you can because that allows us to be gruesome.
See, and that's exactly your point that you just made is exactly that's the point that I made when I spoke at the People's Convention, is that the big business and the big harmful industries in our nation, they don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, because they know that the leaders of both the Democratic and the Republican parties are going to further their interests rather than the interests of the people. So, that's why you see these big businesses donating money to leaders of the Republican Party and leaders of the Democratic Party. And when you step back and you look at that, does that make sense whatsoever? It only makes sense if you know that either party is going to serve your interests. What voter do you know steps back and thinks, you know what? I'll support either the Republicans or the Democrats because I know that either one's going to help me. Do you know anybody that is like that? No. But the people that are like that, again, are big businesses who have the money and the influence to influence our politicians. And it's messed up.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So before we get to the interview portion, we'll go look at what they did pass as far as police, quote unquote, reform. Lawmakers approved other more moderate reforms aimed at stepping up oversight and accountability in police departments. I'm laughing because that keeps me from losing my mind, folks. I'm not laughing because I take this lightly. I'm laughing because this is what keeps us from going insane, because this is so pathetically unreal that this is beyond a parody of itself. This is all in the supposed progressive utopia of California. This is all they're doing when we are having police shootings weekly. Freaking weekly. Here's what they're doing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, if this is happening in California, what's it like in all of the other states? Like, if we can't rely on California to make these, I hate to, like, the gag is, we call these progressive stances. These are not really they're not that radical of ideas. I mean, everything that was rejected, those are not radical ideas. Those are humane, moral ideas. And for some reason, probably money, probably donor influence, they're not passing these things. So again, of course, the moderate reforms were approved, which again is the status quo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so here they are. We'll list them. AB 1506 would require a state-led investigation into police shootings of unarmed civilians and would allow local governments to request investigation into other killings. We're going to look into it, folks. But when it happens, we'll look into it from now on. That's wow. Okay. AB 1185 would allow counties to implement sheriff's review boards or an inspector general to oversee the department and launch investigations. Another measure sent to Newsom, AB 1299, will make it more difficult for police departments to hire officers with marks on their records. More difficult, not even impossible, just more difficult. Those were all status quo measures. I mean, you summed it up perfectly. We didn't even have to go through it. Those are all just status quo measures. That's exactly what that is.
That's saying, what? That's just why I've been so offended by the response of so many people in our government, our officials, in terms of, they're seeing these protests, they're seeing people rising up and they're saying, we care, we're here with you, we're here with you, we're kneeling with you. But you know what, we're actually not going to vote to fix that. And that's the most basic, essential way that an elected official can enact change. So if we want to see change in our government, we have to put people in the government that are going to have the courage to enact that change rather than just go along again with what their donors would like.
Yeah. So there's one more thing I wanted to highlight here. So there was an AB 5 update. Under AB 2257, musicians, journalists, real estate appraisers, and a slew of other professionals would get exemptions from AB 5, a law signed last year that required the reclassification of many contractors to employees. So are you familiar with AB 5 at all?
This is this the one that is affecting Lyft and Uber?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see what all they did to the carve-outs because, you know, I know a lot of people were just going nuts about the legislation, and I read it. Like, I just sat down and read the thing, and I didn't see why people were freaking out so bad. I'm like, look, if this thing, they need to clarify some of the carve-outs, and I did a whole thing on it when I went through the ABC test, and I was like, I think this is how this would be applied, and this is what it means. And I basically concluded, as long as they're very clear on the carve-outs, this could be a great piece of legislation because there's no reason. I mean, they make it out about like Lyft and Uber and all there's no reason why they can't classify drivers as employees, treat them right, and still allow them flex schedules. There are employees all over the country who have flex schedules, especially in our digital age. And then what happens is when you're people who are just drivers who are, you know, just looking to make a little bit of side money or whatever, it's just a part-time thing for you. Well, then you just only log in on certain times and you only get overload that full-time drivers can't take. So then you would just be considered a contractor because you're not part of the essential workload. It's really not that hard. It's just places like Lyft and Uber don't want to treat people right.
Totally. And, you know, I actually talked to a lot of friends about this particular issue a couple of weeks ago. My roommate used to be a Lyft driver. I know a lot of people that have driven for Lyft or Uber. And, you know, the thing is, they don't all have the same exact opinion on this particular issue.
Sure.
And I agree that, you know, I think that a lot of people that do drive full time for Lyft and Uber need to be getting benefits and need to be having worker protections. Otherwise, it's just the same, you know, cheap abuse of labor that we've seen throughout the history of everything. And, you know, there's been people really do fight for workers' rights. And I do think that's important. But I think that, again, the people that drive for Lyft, you know, come from all different backgrounds and also view that job in a different way. Again, the people that are driving full time, you know, they do deserve benefits and they do deserve to have the same rights that, you know, employees going to the office receive. But then you also have the people who are, you know, part-time drivers driving once in a while, and they often have a different opinion because, you know, for people like them, you know, they're nervous that they're not going to be able to just, you know, jump on their app and be able to go out on a ride and make a little extra income. And so I do think that it is a little tricky because this is sort of a modern instance of workers' rights in this modern era. And, you know, I think, and then I also talked to some, you know, people that rely on Lyft and rely on Uber. I myself, I take a Lyft to work. And so it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, you know, I was nervous because I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a ride. You know, I had to take the bus to work, you know, big freaking deal. You know, not the end of the world, but, you know, so I saw so many people saying, oh, we need to be, you know, people upset that now they don't have that convenience available all of a sudden. And I tried to talk to those people and make them see the point of view of the workers. And again, because I'm not one of those workers, I can't really fully, you know, make my own opinion on it. But I do know that there's workers on both sides. There's the workers who primarily use that as their source of income, and they do want to see, you know, this pass. And then there's, you know, other ones that are using it as like a side gig. Who, you know, for them, it might make it a little bit more complicated. So I do think it is kind of a complex issue. And I'm really curious to see how it goes.
Yeah, and certainly it is. And everything I said, I mean, I do think there's an easy way to accommodate. Well, not maybe easy is not the right way to put it, but I do think there is a fairly feasible way to accommodate everybody where everybody still wins, except the CEOs. They have to give up a little bit more. They're
100%.
still going to be rich. They're still going to be rich. They just have to give up a little bit more to treat the people who generate their wealth properly, which of course they don't want to do. But with everything I say, I also have to have the asterisks, because the reality of the situation is, of course, there's a chance our elected officials could fuck this up.
Totally. Of course, there's that chance. Seems like they did. But the other thing is, this would be a different story if this was like, more of a mom and pop business. We're talking about Lyft and Uber, which, they make Uber money. They make tons and tons of money. They have the money to support this initiative. I feel like it would be more concerning if it was a smaller company. But of course, the smaller company wouldn't attract the attention that Uber or Lyft does, because they've become, a mega part of transportation and the economy in a lot of cities. It might be different in more rural areas, but in cities, all of my friends use Lyft, all my friends use Uber. Even if they have a car, it is a really great convenience. So that the money is there for it to happen. It's just a matter of, are they going to be willing to give up that money for their employees? And I hope that's the case. I hope that, I do hope that Lyft drivers and Uber drivers get benefits and are treated like real employees rather than just side giggers.
I'm with you. So we'll see how they roll out the carve outs, but yeah, there are some more interesting particulars there. So let's get to you, because I'm so excited to get your story. Like I'm so stoked. So let's start with the council. What sparked that? What made you decide you want to run for council? What made you decide to want to get involved in Silver Lake?
So I guess it kind of goes back a little bit. I've always had an interest in politics, in civics, in being involved in your community and your greater society. And you can do that on any number of levels. I'm originally from Chicago. That's where I grew up. And my first sort of jump into politics was I was actually interested in running for mayor back in 2010 when Mayor Richard Daley resigned from office. And the Daleys had a family dynasty in Chicago that spanned probably about 40 years. And so when he decided to step down, everyone was kind of gagged. And I was like, well, why not have a queer person, run for office? I've always been of the notion that regular people like you and me should be able to run for office and should be able to be leaders of our political system, because we have a better idea of what it's like for everyday people. I think a lot of career politicians, at a certain point, they are out of touch with what everyday regular people are concerned with and what they need to make their lives better or more manageable. So I ran for mayor back in 2010, and, we did not make it onto the ballot. We got 1,200 signatures. We needed 12,000 signatures. So I kind of laid that to rest for a while. And then when I moved to LA, I moved here permanently in 2014. I moved to Silver Lake and got involved in the drag community and, some performance artists here. And it's actually kind of funny. I started getting these ads on Facebook being like, oh, you should run for neighborhood council, I think they were probably put out by our local neighborhood council. And it got me thinking, I'd never heard about neighborhood councils. And I started looking into what is a Los Angeles neighborhood council. And I looked into it and decided I wanted to run. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I won, because the neighborhood council system in LA, I think it's freaking awesome. And it's the most grassroots level of government. So in LA, you have the mayor at the top, you have 15 city council districts, and then you have 99 neighborhood council districts. And the neighborhood councils, somebody else described it to me this way: neighborhood council people have 1 foot in activism and 1 foot in the government. So the role of the neighborhood councils is to act as advisory bodies to City Hall. So whenever City Hall is voting on any sort of legislation, neighborhood councils can submit what's known as a community impact statement, either for or opposed to that particular legislation. And in essence, the city council is supposed to look at the council file and see, oh, well, all of these neighborhood councils are for this, or all of these neighborhood councils are against this. And they're supposed to take consideration with that. So in that sense, like, neighborhood councils are really important, and it really is the connection between the people and the government here in Los Angeles. And, even though LA is one city, it's a massive city. It's the second biggest city in the USA. We have millions of people that live here. And so I think that the neighborhood council system it's been a freaking awesome experience. And I'm so glad to be a part of it. It's been a really cool experience.
It's like Mike Watt of the Minutemen says, LA is a city of villages.
No, totally. It absolutely is.
It's so true.
You got this village saying this, you got this village saying that. And, when I joined the council system, I will admit, I was a little bit naive in terms of how it works and in terms of, how different neighborhood councils are involved or not involved. And in Silver Lake, from what I found out after the fact, is a little bit more of an involved neighborhood council. There's certain neighborhood councils that are, on the border of not even existing anymore. Sure. And, but really there's a great opportunity for people that live in the city to make a difference in how their city is run. Because whenever we vote on everything, whenever we open up to public comment, it's open to people that live in our neighborhood. What do the people in our neighborhood want to see in their neighborhood, in their city, and then on a greater level, their state and their nation? And, we've heard so much about the trickle down effect. What I love about the neighborhood council system is it's a trickle up effect. Yeah. You start at the base level. It's very grassroots. This is what the people want. Let's push it up into our governmental systems.
Well, and that's the only way systemic change is going to happen. I always say, they never teach you, they teach you the importance of voting. They always tell you to go out and vote, but they're always referring to a presidential when they say that. They don't teach you that the most powerful vote you have is in your neighborhood. Exactly. I'm not going to say, and again, when we say this, well, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you'd agree with this sentiment. We're not implying that corruption never happens on the local level. Of course it can, and it does.
Yes, of course.
But there's so much more transparency, comparatively speaking, and you're in the neighborhood, and those neighborhood councils, you're affected by things the same way another resident is. So you care.
That's the thing. That's why I really, really try to encourage people to vote as local as you can, because that's going to have the most difference and influence on your quality of life, your everyday life situation. When you vote for president, of course, there's going to be greater implications beyond yourself. But if you want to see change happen on a local level, you better be voting for your state representatives. You better be voting for your Congress people, for your mayor, for your city council members, for your neighborhood council members, because these are the people that are sort of, it's like a microcosm of your life versus, voting federally. Yes, that affects you, but not as much as voting locally will affect you. And that's where you can see that change. And if we see that change happen, all across local levels, it inevitably has to move up into county, state, and federal levels.
Well, you look at it, we can apply it contemporarily. I think it's fair to say no matter what happens in November, we are not going to have a friend to the climate in office. However, we have the ability, one city at a time. Austin, Texas has already done it, to have our own Green New Deals. And if every city in this country passes their own Green New Deal, and it's real and it's valid and it's significant and it has, bold demands, that's going to change the country. You can drag the federal folks along kicking and screaming if you have to. They're not going to have a choice.
Exactly. And that's so true. But I guess then, at that point, then it kind of feeds back into, I think we all have this bias to naturally think that people think the way that we think and have the same values. and it always like I'm always brought back to reality when I think about, you know, what the government is like in states like Wyoming or Montana or a lot of these, Republican states. And I think that it's kind of one of those out of sight, out of mind things where, again, you think that people think like you and vote like you, but when they live in a completely different environment than you, they might not be. So I do think that, I think that it's interesting from that point of view. Like, yeah.
No, I totally understand that. And yeah, it's not like, oh, everybody's going to agree on everything. But I feel like also when you kind of come together in a community and you really look at how different things affect you, how different things like I'll use this as an example. You may already know this about me or you may not. I'm a huge proponent for municipal broadband, which is city-owned internet. It's an issue I'm really passionate about that I've tried to make happen in my community. And that's an issue that you can really do something about on the city level. And it's an issue that, when you kind of are talking about it on the big national level, it's kind of like, well, we're taking on big cable. And a lot of people, they may or may not care. But when you look at it as far as your city, everybody will kind of turn their heads and go, oh, wait a second. We can get better internet at a better price. And this creates jobs in our community. And this is going to help businesses in our community too. And this is going to help residents. And this is going to help students. And this is going to help the most vulnerable among us, as well as the people who are of means. I mean, it's gonna make home, housing prices or the value of your home rather go up. Your property value will go up. I mean, when you look at all these factors and you communicate just on this is what it does for our neighborhood. I mean, I think you win over so many more people because you're not stuck in these left-right paradigms or anything like that. You're just saying, this is what it means for our community, for us, because we all live here. And I think that's when you can really, and I think something like a Green New Deal, nobody wants us to end our stay on this planet. We all want to stick around.
No, it's so true. It's so true. No, I agree with you 100%. I just, I wish that people looked at local government in a more important way than what they currently do. I think people look at their government and they think, oh, the federal government is the end all be all, but it really isn't. Our everyday lives are dictated by what goes on in our own communities. And make a change in your community. And if enough people are making changes in their own community, we should see that rise up into higher levels of government. And if not, then again, something is wrong.
So let's get into you ran for Congress and your opponent was Adam Schiff. I am so not a fan of him. So brutal. I mean, I know we were talking some about this off mic. I think he is one of the most repulsive people in all of government. And the reason I feel that way is because he has used the past 4 years to make himself this political celebrity. It's so ironic that he's near Hollywood because he himself is a Hollywood cliche. He's basically just a failed actor who's doing this now. And he would walk over dead bodies in his own district to flap his gums about whatever a CIA talking point he's parroting that week. And he will tell you Trump is this, Trump is that, and Trump is terrible. No one disputes that. Anyone with a pulse knows how terrible Trump is. But here's a guy who has made himself a celebrity by being this so-called resistance hero. Meanwhile, he votes to expand Trump's spying powers every opportunity he gets. He's never seen a war budget he hasn't liked. He's fine with the Patriot Act. He's on the wrong side of basically everything. He'll tell you Trump's enemy number one, but he'll expand his spying powers, fast track his judges. What's he really resisting?
You're right. He is walking over dead bodies. He's walking over dead bodies every day in his district. Homeless people, unhoused people are dying every single day in our city. In the district the city that he lives in, Burbank, unhoused statistics rose 40% last year. 40%. So he is literally walking over dead people in the streets. You know, the thing about Adam Schiff is, again, a lot of people like him, and a lot of those people don't live in this district. A lot of people see what he's been doing on a national scale. They've been seeing, you know, his involvement in the Mueller report and, of course, the impeachment. And in that manner, it has turned him into a national hero of sorts. A lot of people look at Adam Schiff and they think, oh my gosh, he's trying to get President Trump impeached. He is my hero. But then if you look at his voting record probably doesn't reflect the kind of America that you want to live in, the kind of district that you want to live in California.
Well, and it goes beyond that. His record doesn't reflect opposing Trump.
And that's,
you know, I mean, other than the most obvious things, but at the end of the day, if you're going to say what a treasonous traitor someone is, and then you're going to allow them to spy with no, you know, restrictions on American citizens, you're either the worst politician ever, or you're just a liar and it's just a scam and you're just a phony. Exactly. I think he's the latter. He's not a bad politician because he's convinced so many people of this scam, but he's definitely a scam artist. That's why he hates Trump so much. They're both scam artists. They are both con men, and game recognizes game. And I think he is just so utterly despicable because he's preying upon people's hopes. There are people who I think their hearts are in the right place a lot of the times who genuinely believe that he's fighting for them. He's doing the opposite, and he knows what he's doing, and he doesn't care. And he uses it to get money. He will just go and he's like, the Republicans are being mean to me. Give me money. For what, Adam? What are we giving you money for? Your MSNBC appearance?
On that note, exactly. What are you giving money for? So he is, I will agree with you. He might not be a good person, but he is a good politician. And, you know, the gag is that his congressional campaign this past year when we ran, he was one of the most well-funded Democrats in the entire nation. His campaign raised about $10 million this election cycle. What does Adam Schiff's campaign need? They already have the name recognition. They already have the seats. It's, again, to continue power. And, you know, one of the things that I've just tried to make people aware of is look at his voting record and tell me this is a person that you agree with. You know, he has consistently voted for pretty much every war measure that he has been in since 2000. He voted for the Iraq war. He voted for the Afghanistan war. He voted to keep troops in Afghanistan. He voted for the Saudi invasion of Yemen, which is now the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. He voted to establish the Homeland Security. He voted to establish ICE. And just last summer, he voted to give more than $100 million to ICE. And all of that, when you live in a district that is more than 25% Latinx, it's wrong, it's immoral, and it's not a reflection of the people that live in your district that are voting for you. But he is one of those tricky kinds of Democrats that comes off as a progressive Democrat. He comes off progressive because he is pro-LGBTQIA. He is pro certain things that make him look like he's progressive. But what a lot of people are not checking is his voting record on a lot of these important things like war measures. He increases the military funding every single year. If we were to demilitarize in a way that we just reduced our military funding by 10%, 15%, the things that we could do in this nation with that money are almost endless. You know, we could end homelessness. We could ensure universal education and healthcare. But instead, what are we doing? We are continuing to manufacture weapons and enter war so that all of the donors of the military-industrial complex are seeing their return on investment. And it's so messed up. It's so messed up. And again, these are the things that you start to notice when you really look into an elected official and look at their policy, because the average voter, I don't think, really dives into the voting record of the candidate that they are voting for. They, it's been reduced to the system of red or blue. Oh, well, I identify blue, I'm just going to vote blue, without even looking into how this person has voted blue. And it's just, I think it's time that people really start to wise up and vote for candidates that will actually reflect their values.
Amen. 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 So when you brought that message door to door, like pointing out that, hey, this guy is not what he poses to be, what kind of response did you get typically?
It was a mixed response. I will say that at the beginning of our campaign, that was the biggest challenge, was just convincing people that we were a legitimate candidate and worthy of running against the mighty Adam Schiff. And I will say that we weren't successful in convincing everybody of that. A lot of people, laughed in my face. A lot of people said, ha ha ha, we need Adam Schiff right now. I'll do anything to keep Adam Schiff in power. And Adam Schiff knows that. And Adam Schiff knows that he has that sort of support. And again, he can support his donors by voting for military efforts, and he can support the general public by being somewhat progressive on certain issues. And I just think it's really messed up. So I will say, though, that by the end of our campaign, we did really, make an impact with voters. We did really make an impact with the people, and it showed in our results. We ran in the primary election, and in California, we have an open primary, which means rather than electing one Democrat and one Republican to the general election, the primary, it's an open primary. So there could be two people of the same party in the right. General election. So my goal in running in this district was, I was looking at our results over the past several election cycles, and Adam Schiff has always won with about 75% of the votes. This district, as of now, since they did the redistricting after the last census, has voted about 75% Democratic. So by me inserting myself in the race, I was not risking losing a blue seat and having it turn red. My goal of running was that I would advance to the general election, and the people of Los Angeles would have the choice between a moderate, centrist, GOP light Democrat or a progressive Democrat. Unfortunately, we lost by only 1,114 votes, less than 1%. And now there is a Republican up against Adam Schiff in the general election. So essentially, it ensures that the status quo will carry on, because Adam Schiff will be reelected this year, just based off of the number of people that vote Democrat in this district. But again, think of the possibilities if we had a moderate and a progressive Democrat. It's actually presenting people with a real choice to reflect, their value system and the changes that they want to see, both locally and on a federal level. So, ultimately, it was disappointing to lose by this much, but at the same time, it was so inspiring to see how our little rinky-dink amateur rookie campaign could come in and get 22,000 votes, lose by less than 1%. And if you look at the money that came into our particular election, I mentioned earlier, Adam Schiff raised almost $10 million for this past election cycle. The person who won, the Republican, raised more than $500,000. You know how much our third place, and by the way, there were 8 people that ran. We came in third out of 8, and we raised only about $10,000 this election cycle. And it just goes to show that people vote not based off of who has the most money, but who's reflecting your values, who's reflecting what you want to see in our government, So I'm super excited to run again. And, I feel like we made an impact, and I hope that I inspired other people to jump in and try to join a race.
Are you going to run for Congress again in the same district, or are you going to do something else next? What do you think?
We haven't made an announcement. We're not going to be announcing until early 2021, but we are planning on running again.
Maybe unsolicited advice. You ready?
Yes.
Mayor.
I will say this. I thought about it.
Please, Garcetti's horrible.
Well, Garcetti's horrible, and he's also on his way out. He's termed out right now. So that was one of the reasons I looked into that race, because we're going to have a new mayor in 2022. The question is, who's it going to be? It's not going to be.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize he was termed out. Okay.
Turned
I did
out.
not know that.
So it's probably at this point, it's probably going to be one of his proteges. There are already a number of declared and potential candidates for mayor here in Los Angeles. Right now, I would say probably the leading figure to take over is Mike Fuhrer. He's the city attorney. But again, he's a Garcetti person. He is very much of the Garcetti dynasty. And I think that LA right now is really fed up with Eric Garcetti. And
yeah, I mean, I think it's an outsider. There needs to be an outsider candidate who's not part of the Garcetti crew.
You know, and I did think about it, but also I gotta tell you, I'm almost afraid to enter that kind of election just to see the kind of power and forces that come against me. If that makes sense, you know,
no, I understand. I mean, that's what I mean. That's why a lot of people never run for office in general.
Yeah. So, and it sounds kind of weird because it's like, oh, I'd rather run for Congress, but I also feel like I would have a bigger impact. You know, the impact that I want to make as a politician is obviously locally, and that's why I'm working locally, but also on a federal level. You know, I want to be able to influence legislation, not just here in Silver Lake, not just here in Los Angeles, not just here in California, but legislation that's going to positively impact all Americans. And I don't think that's a far-fetched idea or dream.
No, it really isn't. I mean, look, hey, I don't know if you're thinking city council, but you look at someone like a Shama Zuwan, and you look at the impact she has had nationally because of what she's been able to really pioneer in Seattle. I mean, if every city had a Shama Zuwan type leader on their city council, we'd have a different country. I mean, we just would.
No, I agree with you 100%. In fact, there is a city council candidate that I'm a huge fan of who's running right now in Los Angeles. Her name is Nithya Raman, and she's running for city council here in District 4, which overlaps in Silver Lake. So it cuts into the district that I'm a part of. And I really hope to see her win because she is a true progressive. LA, you know, our LA City Council, there's 15 people, but it's the most powerful city council in the United States. And I tell you that for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're the most well-paid city council members in the US. Secondly, as in terms of how many people per council member they are overseeing, it's also the most. New York City, I don't know, I can't remember exactly how many city council members they have, but I want to say it's somewhere between like 40 and 50. Oh, LA only has 15 city council members. So the number of constituents under each city council member's jurisdiction is huge. So city council members play a huge role in just the everyday life and laws of so many people that live in the Los Angeles area. I had considered running for city council. The district that I'm running in, however, or the district that I live in, so the person who is the current council member, his name's Mitch O'Farrell. I would love to challenge Mitch O'Farrell. I would love to. In fact, I disagree with a lot of his policies. A lot of his policies are very anti, they work against unhoused people. It's not progressive at all. However, I do know that there are probably a couple of progressive people that are already going to be, running for that particular seat. And I would rather not challenge other progressives. I would rather see as many progressives across the board. So that's why I kind of ruled that out. I kind of ruled out mayor. But also we did so well last congressional election. It's like, why not finish it, you know?
All right. We lost you for a split second, but you came back.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. So let me do a couple super chats here. Thank you, Red Pill, with love from Antifa. Every soldier that lost their life during World War II was a member of Antifa, says Red Pill. Christopher Walker, what's up, buddy? I am for peaceful protests, says Chris, but with the rise of right-wing MAGA chuds, is how Chris puts it, we need to be aware and protect ourselves. Check out Armed Margins on YouTube. I've never heard of that. For info on self-defense training that is LGBTQ friendly. Interesting. Thanks for the tip, Chris Walker. I appreciate it. And thank you very much for the super chat contribution. Red Pill, thank you as well. You guys help keep this show on the air. And maybe, where can people go to learn more about you?
You can visit my website, which is mabeagirlforcongress.org. You can also visit me on Instagram or Twitter. My Instagram handle is in my name right here, at @mabeagirl, or on my Twitter, which is at @Maebe_A_girl.
So you didn't put your actual Twitter handle in the thing.
I put my Instagram handle.
Oh, okay. All right. That was instant. Okay, I gotcha. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It was so cool to talk to you, and excellent job again on Sunday.
Thank you. Same to you. And I really enjoyed this chat, and I'd love to chat with you again sometime. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll have you back anytime. Maybe a Girl. Check it out, everybody. And we'll be back tomorrow. And tomorrow's episode is actually going to be dedicated to mutual aid. I'm really excited to learn more about what's going on in different communities. We're going to talk to Red, who's up in Seattle. I've been talking about mutual aid episode for a long time. We're doing it tomorrow. So we're kind of this week we kind of covered, electoral politics side today and then mutual aid tomorrow. So interesting stuff. So I'll see you then, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.
I have one more thing.
Yeah, please.
So since I won't be on next week's episode and you're going to be talking about mutual aid, just wanted to say support Ground Game LA. They're instituting an incredible mutual aid program here in Los Angeles that has helped so many people through COVID, so many unhoused people. Ground Game LA.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah, I'm just starting to kind of cover that a little more like formally. So yeah, I'm excited. Like I just kind of tweeted and I was like, who's involved in mutual aid? Who's willing to do my show? And, I got my first person, that starts tomorrow. So it should be interesting stuff. So I'll see you guys then. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy says meow.